Hello, and how are you doing today, precious child of God? I hope you're doing well. I'm preparing for my sermon preaching this Sunday, and I wanted to share some of the things that I came up in my thoughts. And if you're doing the same thing, I'm praying that maybe some of these will be helpful, kind of maybe like a little jump off point for something that will bring out your thoughts. But I wanted to read together with you from Luke 14. This is verses 25 through 33. Now large crowds were traveling with Jesus, and he turned and said to them, "Whoever comes to me and does not hate father and mother, wife and children, brothers and sisters, yes, and even life itself, cannot be my disciple. Whoever does not carry the cross and follow me cannot be my disciple. For which of you, intending to build a tower, does not first sit down and estimate the cost to see whether he has enough to complete it? Otherwise, when he has laid a foundation and is not able to finish, all who see it will begin to ridicule him, saying, 'This fellow began to build and was not able to finish.' Or what king, going out to wage war against another king, will not sit down first and consider whether he is able with 10,000 to oppose the one who comes against him with 20,000? If he cannot, then while the other is still far away, he sends a delegation and asks for the terms of peace. So therefore, none of you can become my disciple if you do not give up all your possessions, or what we would say, things that you call your own." It always bothers me, always, when we read this text and when we come to that second sentence, "Whoever comes to me and does not hate cannot be my disciple." It always bothers me, the language of it, and the way I have come to accept it or understand it is that Jesus uses a lot of hyperbole, something that the English department calls hyperbole, or an exaggeration in a lot of how he words things and the things that he says. Remember, he was telling people to pluck out their eyes so they wouldn't sin. In my mind, that doesn't mean what we think, literally. He doesn't want us to pluck out our eye or cut off our hand. He doesn't want us to physically hate or literally hate someone. The way I describe it to myself is that the kind of love that we have toward our family members, those who are closest to us, is to pale in comparison to the love that we feel for Christ and for God. And that if we look at that love, that everything else that we do as loving will seem like hating, like doing the opposite, because our love for God is called to be so great that our love for each other might even pale in comparison. So that's just the best way that I know how to explain to myself and kind of get over this unease of using that word hate in this reading. And I think it's been helpful in some others. So another thing that comes up here in verse 27 is, "Whoever does not carry the cross and follow me cannot be my disciple." So we are called into a cross-shaped discipleship to follow our Savior to the T of what he has done in his life. And I always like to mention when I preach that carrying the cross is always a choice that we make. It's not something that happens to us. It's not, this thing that is imposed upon us. The cross is always something that we choose, and then possibly know the consequences and realize where we are headed. Or sometimes we think we know what we have chosen, and then life really shows us in our experience what has happened. What comes to mind to me is something that has been a part of my life. I'm a second career pastor, and the first years of my working career, I was an English teacher. I taught English as a foreign language in Croatia, and I really enjoyed doing that. And after I have been serving here as a pastor in the United States for some years, my mom has been sometimes teasing me kind of into some wishful thinking that can be dangerous, the what ifs of life. What if you had stayed in Croatia, and what if you had stayed with your teaching? You could have become maybe a high school principal, or achieved some heights of teaching, and some of the difficulties that you encounter now in your life as a pastor, you wouldn't have. Or sometimes that happens to me in my own thinking as well. What I used to really enjoy doing was translating books from English into Croatian, and then that was a pretty lucrative way to live. um, and I always thought, oh, that's really nice. You can stay at home, work at your own pace. You enjoy living and working like that. And that could have been a really good career for me when I think about it. But then, there is something about being able to give up the dream that we have for our life and choosing to follow God's dream. Question comes up to us from time to time, what is God's dream for my life, for my ministry, for what I'm about to do? And how do you look at it yourself, in your life? What were some dreams that you had for your own life? And how has that changed when you listen to what God's dream is for you? What kinds of things that you maybe had to give up in your life? Sometimes God's dream has a price. So what was that price that perhaps you had to pay in your life? What did you have to give up to follow God's path? And then, do you look at it with regret, or do you look at it with joy? That's the way I look at what I do now, is that who knows how life would have ended up for me had I been a principal, had I followed my dream and translated books. Maybe I would have had a more lucrative life. But today I'm sowing seeds that God is going to grow, and maybe even I won't see the outcome of God's dreams, but what a joy to be able to work together with something that God has dreamed up and look to the bigger picture of what life is all about. I hope that you can look at maybe your ministry and your life and see the choice that you have made to follow Jesus' cross, to put on his cross, and to see the wonders, the miracles, and the beauty that God has brought to your life. Maybe you have given up a lot. Maybe you have given up your dreams. Maybe you have come across and against your family members and often other people in your life, and it was not pretty. But I challenge you and I invite you to see the beauty of God's path that he helped you choose in your life. I hope you continue dreaming and that you continue to enjoy God's dream for your life. Take care. Bye bye.